Is it really safe to open your heart when you already have more than 60 years behind you? The answer may surprise you. What I am about to share can mark the difference between a life of deep fulfillment in your later years or falling into emotional traps that could cost you dearly. As someone who has walked beside thousands of people in their journey of love and heartbreak, I can tell you this: what you will hear now cannot be found in books or quick advice columns. This knowledge was born from real stories, stories woven with joy, tears, and yes, the pain of those who trusted me with their most fragile truths. It does not matter whether you are widowed, divorced, or have simply been alone for decades. This stage of life carries its own mysteries. And if your emotional balance, and even your financial well-being, matters to you, then stay with me. Press like so others can also be protected by this message, and subscribe to Unseen Psyche, because together we will navigate wisely through the shimmering illusions of late love. Loneliness after 60 is unlike loneliness at 30 or 40. It grows sharper, heavier, more urgent. And that urgency can become dangerous. Research reveals that nearly 3/4 of people over 60 step into a new relationship not out of genuine love, but out of fear of being alone. This truth is sobering. Decisions driven by fear rarely lead us to safe harbors. More often, they pull us into storms we never anticipated. Take the story of Maria Elena, a 64-year-old woman from Guadalajara. After 15 years of widowhood, she believed she had found love with Roberto, a man she met at a retirees' gathering. With tears in her eyes, she confessed to me, "Professor, I did not fall in love with Roberto. I fell in love with the idea of not being alone." Within 6 months, she sold her home and moved in with him, only to discover a harsh reality. Roberto's 5 adult children saw her not as family, but as a rival to their inheritance. The oasis she thought she had found was nothing more than a mirage. This is the cruel illusion of late love. After walking the desert of loneliness for years, every shadow begins to look like shelter. But not every shadow protects. Some shadows conceal the truth. And then, there is the pressure of time. At 60 or 70, every year feels precious. The thought of wasting more time can push us into rushing. Yet true intimacy, understanding someone's motives, wounds, and patterns, cannot be fast-tracked. When the clock feels louder than our intuition, we skip the steps that protect us. There is also a hidden battle many rarely speak about: adult children. In countless stories I have witnessed, it is not strangers who block happiness, but one's own family. Sometimes this resistance comes from love and protection, but often it springs from financial concerns and fears about inheritance. The risks of starting a relationship after 60 are real, but awareness is your safeguard. By understanding these dynamics, loneliness, time pressure, and family opposition, you can approach love with open eyes and steady wisdom. Love after 60 can be beautiful, but only if you see beyond the mirage. Remember this: when you step into a new relationship in your 60s or 70s, you are not just uniting 2 hearts. You are weaving together 2 entire family systems. And every family system comes with its own fears, its own expectations, and yes, its own financial interests. This is why adult children so often become the unspoken barrier to late life love. They may not say it directly, but their objections usually revolve around 3 things: inheritance, their role as your emotional anchor, and the comfort zone they don't want disturbed. These tensions form a triangular conflict: parent, partner, and children, that has quietly destroyed more late life relationships than illness or distance ever could. I think of Don Fernando, a retired businessman of 67 from Bogota. After 3 lonely years as a widower, he met Esperanza, a radiant woman of 62. His 3 sons smiled at first, pretending to support him. But soon, subtle poison began to drip into his days. "Dad, don't you think it's too soon? Are you sure she isn't after your money? Mom would be devastated if she knew." Their words seemed protective, wrapped in concern, but beneath them lay fear. Fear of losing inheritance, of losing influence, of losing their father's loyalty. This is one of the most painful traps. Emotional manipulation disguised as care. And it works, because who wants to believe their own children are acting out of self-interest? Yet countless parents fall into this silent war, torn between loyalty to their grown children and the desire for companionship in their later years. But it is not only your children who may resist. Your new partner's children can also see you as an intruder. If their widowed or divorced parent has been their source of emotional or financial stability, your presence can feel like a threat that pushes them out of their secure place. What begins as polite smiles can quickly turn into open hostility, hidden accusations, or passive-aggressive behavior that erodes the relationship from within. Then comes another invisible danger, the trap of the unhealed past. You cannot give what you do not possess. You cannot love wholeheartedly with a heart still bleeding from old wounds. And by 60, we all carry them. Divorces that cut deep, betrayals that made us wary, or the death of a beloved partner that left a void impossible to fill. The danger is confusing readiness for companionship with readiness for love. Companionship means enjoying someone's presence, sharing dinners, traveling together, filling the silence of lonely evenings. But love requires something more: true openness, vulnerability, and trust. If you find yourself constantly talking about your ex, comparing every gesture of your new partner with memories of the old, or feeling guilty as if you are betraying someone's memory, then you are not ready for love. You are only ready to repeat painful patterns. Jose Manuel, a 69-year-old from Mexico City, confided this to me after his third breakup in just 5 years. "Wise one," he said. "They all tell me I am too controlling, that I do not trust." What he could not see was that his mistrust was not about the women he met, but about the wounds of his past that he never healed. And until those wounds are faced, love will always slip through his hands. So, if you are over 60 and seeking love, pause. Ask yourself, am I ready to love, or just desperate to escape loneliness? Am I carrying my past into my present? And am I willing to see the invisible threads, family, children, time, inheritance, that weave themselves into every late life relationship? Only by facing these truths can you find love that is not a mirage, but a shelter of wisdom and peace. Jose Manuel, the 69-year-old man from Mexico City, once said to me through weary eyes, "I always compare." What he didn't realize was that he had never truly faced the wound left behind when his wife betrayed him with his best friend after 30 years of marriage. Time had passed, 5 years since the divorce, but the wound was still fresh, silently dictating his choices. The truth is this: the heart does not follow the calendar. It does not heal simply because months or years have gone by. Emotional healing has its own rhythm, and forcing it before its time only deepens the pain. This leads us into one of the most dangerous illusions of late life relationships: the fallacy of experience. Many believe that because they are older, wiser, and more mature, they are immune to deception, manipulation, or poor judgment. How many times have you heard, or even told yourself, "I've lived enough. I won't be fooled like I was in my youth"? But reality is far more complex, and in some ways more perilous. Yes, experience teaches lessons, but age also brings new vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities that emotional predators know exactly how to exploit. Loneliness accumulated over years can cloud judgment. The brain, starved of companionship, begins to rewire itself. It becomes more hopeful, more forgiving, more willing to overlook red flags that once would have been obvious. This makes older adults particularly susceptible to illusions of connection. And predators are watching. Consider this number. Romance fraud cases among people over 60 have risen by more than 300% in just the past 5 years. These are not clumsy scams. These are orchestrated strategies executed by professionals who know exactly what words to whisper, what gestures to mimic, and how to target the deepest human need, the desire not to be alone. Carmen Rosa, a strong 71-year-old woman from Lima, raised 5 children and managed her own business for 3 decades. She prided herself on being intelligent and independent. Yet she lost her entire savings to Miguel, a charming widower she met on a dating app. Through tears she told me, "Wise one, how could I have been so stupid?" But she was not stupid. She was human. And it is precisely that humanity, the need for love, belonging, and tenderness, that predators exploit. And while financial traps are devastating, there is another silent influence rarely discussed: the hormone revolution after 60. These physical changes don't just affect the body, they shape how we perceive love, intimacy, and relationships. For women, postmenopause often shifts estrogen levels in ways that change both desire and emotional sensitivity. Some discover a newfound freedom and openness toward intimacy, while others face painful physical changes, reduced interest, or emotional withdrawal that can create conflict in new partnerships. For men, the gradual decline of testosterone can affect self-esteem, physical performance, and identity. Many respond with a hidden drive to prove themselves desirable, decisions often motivated by wounded pride rather than true affection. The true danger lies in silence. Few speak openly about these changes with their partners. Without honesty, expectations collide with reality, leaving both people feeling misunderstood, frustrated, and disappointed. And relationships that might have flourished in truth collapse under the weight of unspoken realities. This stage of life offers the potential for deep, genuine companionship, but only if we dare to face our wounds, acknowledge our vulnerabilities, and embrace openness. Without that, late love risks becoming not a gift, but another painful mirage. Another layer of complexity often overlooked in late life relationships comes from something few people consider: medication. Many treatments commonly prescribed after 60 directly influence desire, emotional responsiveness, and even clarity of thought. How many crucial romantic decisions are unknowingly shaped under the quiet influence of a pill? How many people rush into commitments, not realizing their judgment has been chemically altered? It is a silent factor that can profoundly affect choices of the heart. To make matters more challenging, society itself has long painted intimacy after 60 as unnecessary, even laughable. Older love is often portrayed as a sweet novelty, or worse, as something unnatural. This cultural invisibility creates enormous pressure. Many feel they must prove to themselves and to the world that they are still desirable, still capable, still alive. Yet in that attempt to prove something, countless people step into situations for which they are neither emotionally ready nor physically prepared. Then there is the illusion of lost time. "I don't have time to waste," is a phrase I hear over and over again from those seeking love in their later years. And while it is understandable, because awareness of mortality sharpens with age, it is also extremely dangerous. That sense of urgency creates artificial pressure, pushing people to accelerate processes that cannot and should not be rushed. Truly getting to know someone takes time. Building trust takes time. Discovering whether you are genuinely compatible takes time. But when fear of wasting years drives decisions, people often skip these vital steps. And what is the result? The very opposite of what they were trying to protect: wasted energy, wasted resources, and sometimes wasted years in toxic, draining relationships. This urgency makes older adults especially vulnerable to sweet words and grand declarations that should, in fact, trigger suspicion. "I've loved you since the first day." "I've never felt like this before." "Let's marry soon." "At our age, we can't wait." These phrases may sound romantic under the weight of time, but they are red flags. Ask yourself, if someone falls head over heels in a week, What assurance do you have that they won't fall out of love just as quickly? Real love is not a lightning strike. It is a slow, steady flame that builds with patience and honesty. Dolores, a 68-year-old from Buenos Aires, learned this lesson in the hardest way. She married Raul after only 4 months, convinced that waiting was a luxury they could not afford. 2 years later, drowning in divorce proceedings, she confessed, "If I had just waited a little longer, I would have discovered the truth. He was an alcoholic, deeply in debt, and saw me as nothing more than a way out of his problems." And this brings us to another painful mirage: financial security. By the time many people reach their 60s, they are often at their most stable financially. They may own property, have a reliable pension, or maintain significant savings. Ironically, this very stability makes them a target, not only for professional scammers, but also for partners in financial distress who see romance as a solution to their own struggles. Financial manipulation in later life relationships is rarely obvious. It creeps in subtly: requests for small loans, promises of paying things back, joint investments, or sudden emergencies that always seem to require your help. But over time, it erodes both financial security and emotional well-being. And when the truth finally emerges, the damage can be devastating. Love after 60 can be a beautiful gift, but without awareness, the risks multiply. Pressure from time, cultural invisibility, medical influences, and financial vulnerabilities are real forces shaping late life relationships. Recognizing them is the first step toward protecting not only your resources, but also your heart. It often begins innocently. A small loan for an urgent need, a shared bill where you contribute a little more, a promise of a better future if you both pool resources. Step by step, the financial entanglement deepens until it no longer feels optional. It feels like responsibility. My son needs surgery. If I don't pay this debt, I'll lose my house. If we combine our money, we could live more comfortably. These are not random pleas. They are calculated tactics designed to press two of your most human buttons: your generosity and your longing for a secure, shared future. But here is a truth I have observed repeatedly in my counseling sessions. The most devastating financial manipulation does not always come from direct requests for money. It comes from creating dependency through money. A partner may begin by helping you manage bills, organizing investments, or optimizing your finances. At first, it feels convenient, even comforting, to have someone handle what seems complicated. Yet slowly, the balance shifts. They stop simply assisting and begin controlling. Before long, you may not even know the state of your own accounts. Consider the story of Maria Delaran, a retired teacher of 68. She lived comfortably on her pension and careful savings. At a dance club, she met Alberto, an educated former accountant who seemed both charming and reliable. After 3 months, he offered to help her manage her finances. Within 6 months, he had reorganized her investments, transferred her savings into accounts under his control, and persuaded her to sell her house so they could buy a better one together. When she finally sensed something was wrong, it was too late. Alberto had disappeared, taking with him 30 years of her life savings. But the danger does not always come from deception. Sometimes it comes from ourselves, from the eagerness to prove a new relationship is serious. Many people in their 60s and 70s rush into financial decisions that should only be made after years of tested trust. Selling property to move in together, merging accounts too soon, changing wills, or signing loans after a few months of infatuation. These decisions may feel like gestures of love, but they can dismantle a lifetime of stability in a moment of emotional haste. And here is a sobering reality: at 30 or 40, financial mistakes can often be repaired with time, work, and opportunity. But after 60, time is no longer an ally. If you lose your savings at 65, you do not have decades to rebuild. That safety net simply doesn't exist anymore. Which is why every financial choice in a later life relationship must be weighed not only with the heart, but with the cold clarity of logic. I have seen strong, independent people ruined, emotionally and financially, because they confused generosity with love, or mistook neediness for passion. In truth, money at this stage is never just money. It represents independence, dignity, and security. It is the dividing line between a comfortable old age and one shadowed by hardship. And while finances carry their dangers, there is another subtle trap that can poison relationships after 6 comparison. The words sound familiar. My wife would never have done that. My ex-husband used to handle this differently. Things were better back then. These phrases slip out easily, often unconsciously, yet they act as quiet saboteurs. By constantly comparing, we measure the present against a past that cannot be relived. At this age, everyone brings decades of habits, preferences, and experiences into love. But when the past becomes the yardstick, the present partner is always found lacking. Comparison, like financial entanglement, undermines the foundation of late life relationships. Both are traps that replace authentic connection with illusions. Illusions that can cost not only love, but the peace and security you have worked a lifetime to build. One of the most subtle but destructive forces in late life relationships is comparison. We often try to shape a new partner into molds carved by past loves instead of allowing the relationship to grow into something uniquely its own. Comparisons can go both ways, and both are equally corrosive. Negative comparisons doom a relationship from the beginning. My ex was never like this. But even seemingly positive comparisons can be dangerous. You understand me better than my ex ever did. Why? Because they create an impossible standard, demanding that the new partner live up to an idealized image that no one can truly embody. Another danger is the tendency to romanticize past relationships. After years of loneliness, the mind plays tricks. It filters memories, softening the conflicts and highlighting only the good moments. The late partner becomes a saint, the former marriage a golden age. And every new relationship, no matter how loving or genuine, inevitably seems weaker in comparison. But comparisons are not only about former partners. Many people in their 60s and 70s also compare themselves with their younger selves. I was more romantic at 40. I had more energy before my body began to change. These self-comparisons can be just as harmful, creating unreachable expectations that both you and your partner should behave exactly as you did 30 years ago. Instead of embracing love in its present form, people mourn what once was, and in doing so, sabotage what could be. Take Roberto, a 72-year-old widower from Caracas. After 45 years of marriage, he met Elena, a kind woman who wanted nothing more than to share her life with him. But for 2 years, Roberto unconsciously compared her to his late wife. Every gesture, every habit, every detail was measured against the memory of the woman he had lost. Eventually, Elena could no longer bear being treated as a ghost's substitute. She left. With tears in his eyes, Roberto admitted, "I never realized I wanted Elena to be my wife's shadow instead of herself." But his story didn't end there. Hurt and ashamed, Roberto swung to the opposite extreme. Determined never to compare again, he met Carmen, a vibrant woman who seemed full of life. This time, he ignored every warning sign. Carmen was emotionally unstable, financially reckless, and manipulative. But Roberto, blinded by his vow not to compare, dismissed his instincts as unfair judgments. Within a year, Carmen had drained his savings and left him broken once more. The truth is this: comparisons are not the problem. Rigid and destructive comparisons are. It is natural, even healthy, to view a new relationship in light of past experiences. The danger arises when expectations become inflexible, when we demand the new partner embody all the virtues of the past without any of the flaws. I have seen relationships collapse simply because one partner cooked differently, expressed affection differently, or maintained a different daily rhythm. My wife always made my coffee this way. Such statements become weapons instead of opportunities to discover new forms of tenderness. And then there are cultural comparisons. Many people over 60 grew up in a world where roles were rigid and predictable. Men pursued, women received, men provided, women nurtured. But the world has changed. Today, women often take initiative. Men are freer to express vulnerability, and relationships are built on more balanced dynamics. Those who cling to comparisons with how things used to be often find themselves frustrated and resistant, unable to adapt to a healthier, more equal form of love. Comparison, whether with the past, with ourselves, or with cultural ideals, is one of the quietest but most effective saboteurs of late love. To find happiness after 60, we must let go of ghosts, embrace change, and allow new love to be exactly what it is: new. And this brings us to another hidden challenge: the burden of health. Because after 60, love is no longer only about emotions. It is also about bodies, illnesses, and the realities of aging. Yet, one of the most overlooked dangers in late life relationships is the hidden reality of health. Many people over 60 are not fully honest about their medical problems when entering a new relationship. At first, this might seem harmless, an attempt to protect the budding connection from fear, rejection, or judgment. But the truth is that concealment creates dangerous illusions and unrealistic expectations. Studies reveal that nearly 40% of people over 60 admit to hiding serious health issues when starting a new romance. Diabetes, high blood pressure, heart conditions, even the early signs of dementia. These are not small details. They shape daily life, emotional rhythms, and the very foundation on which intimacy rests. The problem is not illness itself. Illness is a natural part of aging. The real danger is dishonesty. When health conditions are hidden, they can endanger not only the individual, but also the emotional, financial, and even physical well-being of their partner. Imagine falling deeply in love, only to discover months later that the sudden mood swings you interpreted as sensitivity were actually hypoglycemic episodes. Or realizing that the charming forgetfulness you found endearing was the early shadow of Alzheimer's. The betrayal is not in the illness. It is in the concealment. Because what is hidden cannot be prepared for, supported, or shared. And hidden health does not end with physical illness. Many carry unspoken burdens of the mind and spirit: chronic depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, unresolved trauma. Some believe that because medication once helped, or symptoms have been quiet for a while, they no longer need to disclose their struggles. But silence in these areas can be devastating. Consider Fernando, a 71-year-old who met Lucia Marina in a senior yoga class. She was vibrant, glowing, the embodiment of joy. For 8 months, their love blossomed. Wedding plans followed. But then, suddenly, Marina suffered a severe manic episode that led to hospitalization. Only then did Fernando learn that she had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder 15 years earlier, had stopped her medication, and during her manic phases had accumulated debts he knew nothing about. What began as a story of romance became a lesson in the cost of hidden truths, emotional heartbreak, combined with financial collapse. There is another darker side. Some individuals deliberately exploit the health struggles of others. They present themselves as devoted caregivers, eager to help, showering affection and promises of stability. But beneath the mask of compassion lies manipulation. I have documented cases where such people specifically sought out older partners with health limitations, not out of love, but as a strategy to gain access to their homes, resources, and inheritance. The vulnerability that comes with illness becomes a tool for control. This may sound cruel, but it is a reality we cannot ignore. Predators target those whose health makes them more dependent. And when a person hides their struggles out of shame or fear, they unknowingly make themselves more exposed to exploitation. To build love after 60, honesty about health is not optional. It is essential. Health challenges do not destroy love, but secrecy does. True intimacy begins when both partners bring not only their hopes, but also their vulnerabilities into the open. Only then can love, in its mature form, provide the trust, care, and strength it was meant to hold. Dolores, a 74-year-old woman, lived with the constant pain of severe arthritis. Her limited mobility made her depend heavily on others. She met Romero in a doctor's office while he was accompanying his aunt, and at first he seemed like a blessing. Gentle, caring, and attentive. He appeared to understand the struggles of illness and presented himself as a man with experience in caregiving. Within 6 months, he had moved into Dolores's home, under the pretense of offering her comfort and daily support. He managed her medications, her appointments, and eventually even her finances. What looked like devotion was in fact control. When her children finally intervened, the truth emerged. Romero had been deliberately overdosing Dolores to keep her confused, weak, and dependent on him. This is not an isolated case. It is a chilling reminder that vulnerability can attract not only love but also predators who disguise exploitation as affection. But beyond physical health, another area of hidden risk often arises: sexual expectations. Many older adults conceal difficulties related to intimacy out of shame, erectile dysfunction, lack of lubrication, or side effects of medication that dampen desire. In a culture where sexuality is often seen as proof of vitality, admitting these struggles feels like failure. Yet silence only creates misunderstandings. One partner may interpret avoidance as rejection, while the other suffers in guilt and frustration. Over time, this secrecy erodes connection and damages self-esteem on both sides. True intimacy requires honesty, even about the parts of ourselves that feel fragile. Then comes a modern challenge unique to our era: the digital revolution. Technology has transformed the way people over 60 seek love. Dating apps, online groups, and social networks promise connection across distance, but they also open doors to deception. In the digital world, it is far too easy to misrepresent oneself. Photos may be a decade old, stories may be invented, and sometimes entire identities are fabricated. For those who grew up in a time when meeting someone meant face-to-face interaction, the subtlety and speed of online deceit can be overwhelming. Digital intimacy also carries its own illusions. Hours of late-night messaging can simulate closeness that does not truly exist. Words typed on a screen may feel like deep confessions, but they are often no more than digital fantasies. Scammers understand this psychology well. They are highly skilled in emotional manipulation, using carefully chosen words, borrowed images, and staged stories to move a person from curiosity to infatuation within weeks. Consider Theresa, a 66-year-old widow from Medellin. She believed she had found companionship with David, a widowed engineer working abroad. For 4 months, they exchanged heartfelt messages daily. Theresa felt seen, cherished, and understood. When David shared stories of medical emergencies and travel setbacks, she sent him over 1,000 zalozen without hesitation. Only later did she discover that David was part of a network of international scammers. Theresa's story reveals something deeper than financial loss. Before her husband's death, she had been a respected school principal, sharp and discerning, skilled at detecting dishonesty in others. Yet, loneliness can silence even the strongest instincts. In her grief, the emotional bond she believed she had with David became so powerful that she ignored glaring warning signs: his refusal to video call, constant emergencies, and photos that looked as though they belonged in magazines. It was like a drug, she later admitted. The emotional connection blinded her judgment. This is the hidden danger of love later in life. Not only the risk of being exploited by others, but also the way loneliness and longing can cloud even the sharpest minds. At Unseen Psyche, we must confront these truths honestly. Health, intimacy, and technology are not obstacles to love, but they become dangerous when covered in secrecy or used as tools for manipulation. True love in later years must be built not on illusions, but on honesty, awareness, and the courage to see clearly. Every message from him made me feel alive again. With these words, Theresa captured the most insidious dimension of digital scams. They are not only about financial loss. They strike at something far deeper, the human capacity to believe in love. When the truth surfaced, Theresa's pain was not limited to the money she had sent. What haunted her most was the shattered trust. The experience left her unable to open herself to genuine opportunities, rejecting invitations from real, kind people who truly wished to know her. The emotional wounds exceeded the financial scars. This is why digital manipulation is so devastating. Technology gives predators unprecedented access to the private worlds of their victims. Through social media, they can study a person's life before even making contact. They know if you are divorced or widowed, whether you have children, and sometimes even your financial standing, gleaned from nothing more than photos and posts. Consider Pedro, 69, who loved to share his travels on Facebook. He proudly posted pictures of his home, his new car, and exotic destinations. Without realizing it, he had created a detailed map of his lifestyle. To scammers, Pedro was a perfect target. Wealthy, single, and eager to share. When Sophia reached out to him online, she was already armed with all the right keys to unlock his trust. She mirrored his passions, claimed to have visited the same destinations, and even commented on his car. The bond felt instant and authentic, yet it was entirely manufactured. Another emerging danger is digital dependence. For some older adults, the thrill of a new message becomes addictive. The ping of a notification, the attention of a stranger, the fleeting spark of being wanted. All of it can become the single source of excitement in otherwise quiet routines. The danger is subtle. In pursuit of that emotional high, people take increasing risks, ignoring warning signs, overlooking inconsistencies, and pushing aside the doubts they would normally entertain. Technology has also stripped away the natural safeguards of earlier generations. In the past, meeting someone new involved layers of accountability, mutual acquaintances, community reputations, or simply time spent observing a person across different situations. Today, intimacy can be manufactured in minutes. Two people can exchange deeply personal confessions within hours of first contact. While this rapid connection feels exhilarating, it bypasses the social filters that once provided protection against manipulation. Equally concerning is digital privacy. Many older individuals are unaware of how much personal information they share online. A casual check-in at a cafe, a picture revealing a street address, or details about a daily routine. Each of these small disclosures can be pieced together by someone with malicious intent. What feels like harmless sharing can become a tool for exploitation. The digital revolution has democratized love, but it has also democratized vulnerability. And then, there is what I call the rescuer syndrome. After 60, many people carry not only life wisdom, but also resources, stability, and the desire to give. Meeting someone in need can awaken powerful feelings of purpose and tenderness. But here lies the danger. Confusing love with salvation. Supporting a partner who already stands on their own is one thing. Choosing someone precisely because they need saving is another. And it is a trap disguised as virtue. The rescuer becomes consumed by the role of caretaker, while the relationship quietly erodes into dependence, imbalance, and hidden resentment. At Unseen Psyche, I want you to remember, love at any age should be built on truth, not illusion. The dangers of digital deception, emotional dependency, and misplaced rescue are real, but they are not destiny. Awareness, honesty, and self-respect remain the strongest defenses against the shadows that hide behind the promise of companionship. The rescuer syndrome emerges from patterns deeply woven into a lifetime of caring. Many people over 60 have spent decades giving to children, to partners, to parents, even to workplaces that demanded constant sacrifice. When they finally reach a stage where they can live for themselves, they often do not know how. The instinct to nurture, to fix, to protect feels so natural that they fall into relationships where they unconsciously repeat the same role. It begins with seemingly noble thoughts. He has suffered so much. With my support, he could finally heal. But such sentiments should serve as warning signs, not invitations. People who perpetually seek rescue rarely want to change. Instead, they look for someone who will sustain their dysfunction while disguising it as love. Without realizing it, the rescuer becomes an enabler, keeping the cycle of immaturity alive. Relationships built on saving are never balanced. One gives endlessly, while the other consumes without reciprocity. This is not love. It is codependency. And over time, it leaves the rescuer depleted, emotionally drained, and robbed of the joy that true companionship should bring. At Unseen Psyche, I emphasize this truth: love after 60 is no less meaningful. But it is different. It requires greater patience, clarity, and wisdom than in youth. The heart alone is not enough. It must walk hand in hand with the mind. If we fail to see the line where compassion becomes exploitation, where memory turns into unhealthy comparison, where hope slides into illusion, then we risk losing the very things that matter most in this stage of life: peace, dignity, and stability. But late love, when grounded in honesty and balance, can be the purest form of love. It is no longer about building families or chasing status. It is about presence, trust, and the quiet joy of being truly seen. My closing advice is simple: never rush. Do not compromise your boundaries. And above all, never forget, your value has not diminished with the passing years. On the contrary, you are a living archive of wisdom, resilience, and stories. You deserve a partner who meets you as an equal, not as a project, not as a savior, and not as a solution to their chaos. Learn to separate love from illusion, attention from manipulation, and companionship from dependency. Do this, and you will discover that late love is not weaker or more dangerous. It can become the most profound reward of your life, if approached with open eyes and a steady heart.